Hello and welcome to our third class activity. So today we are going to install the domain controller, the Active Directory on our server. And once we do that, it's going to become the domain controller. So open up that class activity number 3, so you can put your screenshots when I ask you to. Okay, so let's boot up the server, the domain controller, the one that we installed last time. Okay, again, let me just close that. Okay, let's log in. Input keyboard, Control Alt Delete. Remember our password is I love server 2022. I love server 2022. All right. This is what makes the computer, the server, a domain controller by installing the Active Directory. So we can control all the computers and all the users that are in the domain. And I'll explain that on our next activity when we have a client join the server, and that client will be controlled by the server. What I mean by controlled means we can dictate what that computer can do and cannot do, and users that log into that computer as well. Anyway, we'll get to that on our next class activity. For now, we want to install the Active Directory services. So to do that, click on, let's launch the server manager, because that's where we're going to do our work. All right, now to add the domain controller, you either can do it from here, add roles and features, or you can go to manage by clicking on manage, add roles and features, because the Active Directory services is a role. If you don't install it, it's just like a regular computer, regular workstations. You can actually use the server as a regular workstations, but then you can add all the roles. Roles are, the Active Directory. Another role, it could be a DNS server. Another role will be a DHCP server, and so on. So this server it could be an HTTP server if you wanted to, and it can add all these different roles and features it can do for you. But if you don't do that, they stay there unless you activate them, you install them. But we do want to install the Active Directory. So click on Add Roles and Features. All right, so click on Next. This is just the wizard. We wanted a role-based, right? Because we are on the premises. We're installing it. Okay, and we are going to choose the server. That's the only server we have, right? Has that static IP address that we configured last time. Click on Next. All right, and you want to pick the Active Directory domain services. That's the box that you're going to choose. So check that box, and all of these features are going to be added. And you want to make sure that the box that says include management tools is also checked. So don't touch anything, just click on Add Features. All right, once you do that, now it's checked, click on Next. All right, click on Next. Click on Next, the Active Directory services, and you want to check the box that says restart the destination server automatically if required. All right, so you click Yes, and then click on Install. All right, so let it install. Once this comes up to the end, then we'll have to promote the server next, okay? Take a screenshot of this, and I will come back once this is done. Okay, now that we see that some configuration is required, but the installation has been succeeded. You can close this, and you can see that there's an explanation now notification right here. All right. So we can actually close this, go to the notifications, click on that, and you see that the post-deployment configuration has not been completed. We need to promote the server. So that's our second step. So click on promote the server to the domain. All right. So what we're going to do is we're going to create a new directory tree. When you have multiple trees, we call it a forest. We don't have any trees and no directory trees whatsoever. So we're going to add a new forest, and the new forest is only going to have one tree in it, which is the company or the organization that you are going to control, the domain. And we're going to call it xyz.local. Okay, so that is the root of the tree. Think of it as like an upside down tree where the root is on the top. All right. If you have multiple trees, then they become the forest. But we only have a forest with one tree in it, and the root of that tree is the XYZ. Everything underneath it will be the branches of it. We'll call them organizational unit. But that's for another class. All right, so call it xyz.local. Click on next. All right, so you can see the deployment configuration is doing it. When you see that line running, that's why it's still grayed. So don't panic. Just wait till it's doing it's adding the tree in this brand new forest. All right. Now we're going to use to make sure that this is backward compatible to 2016 server and even 2012 and all of these. We want to make sure that we the one who is going to promote it and activate it, in other words, is the administrator. So we're going to use the administrator password, which is I love server 2022. Remember, with capital I and capital S. So write down I love server 2022. Write that again. I love server 2022. Click on next. All right, click on. We don't want to delegate DNS. Just click on next. The NetBIOS, don't worry about that. It's going to be populated. You don't have to write anything in there. The NetBIOS domain name will be xyz.xyz, which is not. All right, so the NetBIOS domain name is just the XYZ. This is for like a link, local domain area, non-routable. So don't worry, this is old to be backward compatible prior to 2000 servers. So just click on next. All right, this is where they're going to be located. The software for the database, the log files, the sys volume. Okay, so we're not going to change that. Just click on next. All right, and this is the actual, this is like a summary of what we did. If you click on view script, this is actually the script that was done for all the little buttons that we did to promote the server, right? Take a snapshot of this, okay? And then close it, and then click on next. When you take a snapshot, make sure you paste it in your class activity at the bottom of the lab. All right, it's going to double check the prerequisites to make sure you have the prerequisites to promote the server and to get it up and running, to get the Active Directory up and running. Okay, so let's just wait a few seconds. All prerequisites has passed successfully. Excellent. Click on install. All right, so once you get this, click on close and let the server restart. All right, the restart has finished. By the way, just to let you know, I do pause the video when there's an installation or something like that. That's for a long time. So you should pause the video as well and wait for your server to boot up or to do the installation. So this way we can go together. It's not that that it happened very quickly for me. I just paused the video. Anyway, so let's log in. Go to keyboard, Control Alt Delete. Now we have a domain, XYZ. I love server 2022. All right. We need to open up the server manager again. So let's launch that. All right. And in there, we need to open up to see the actual, by the way, you'll be able to see the directory services has been installed right here on the dashboard, under the dashboard. So let's wait to make sure that the server has fully booted it. You see that? It's still going. So that tells you that we haven't fully been loaded yet. So we'll just wait a little bit. There you go. The Active Directory domain services have been installed. And by the way, this is one thing you need to know. The DNS server automatically gets installed if you install the Active Directory domain services. So once you install that, automatically you get the DNS. Okay, so that's that. Let's go to Tools. And you have the Active Directory users and computers. This is where we're going to be doing a lot of our work. This is where we're going to control or do our configurations for users and containers and so on. So open that up. All right, let's just open this up a little bit. All right, so there's our XYZ domain. Expand it by clicking on this greater than sign. All right, here are folders that Microsoft automatically by default gave us. And so this way we can manage and maintain our devices. There's where all the computers are going to be. And here's a whole bunch of domain users, default users and groups that they created for us. All right. In the computers, there's no computers in there. But when our next exercise, our next class activity, we are going to have a client, a computer, a workstation, join the server, and he's going to be in here. He's going to be registered into the domain. All right, so this is the root of the tree, and when you see that little icon on top of a folder, that's called a container. A container is, you can have a whole bunch of users and computers or anything like that. Folders are just like a regular folder from the Explorer. Okay, so click on users. Just to show you one more thing, here's the administrator, the default administrator that we always use. He's another guest user that Microsoft gives us by default. But you see that little arrow pointing down? That means it's been disabled. And leave it disabled. We do not need it. All right, now the first thing we need to do is let's pin this to the taskbar too. So let's go right here where it's open. Right click on the taskbar where it's the Active Directory users and computers are open, and pin to the taskbar because we're going to use it a lot. Take a screenshot of this. And when you do that, that's it. Upload this to, this is it for lab number 3, I think it is, right? Yeah, class activity number 3. All right, so you can close the server manager, and I'll see you on the next class activity.